Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Shelly. Welcome. Feel free to subscribe. And today Shelly's hot topic is going to be is someone a hypochondriac or are they hyperconscious of their health? Now this hits for me because over the years, I've been told, oh, you're neurotic, you're a hypochondriac, you worry too much, simmer down. And it really makes me question, like, am I like neurotic or something? And I've come to really, I get offended. I'm not gonna lie. I feel some type of way when people say that. Oh, you're neurotic, or cut it out, or you're a hypochondriac. And here's the thing. And this is just like a little true story. My daughter, my oldest daughter, when she was 5 years old, it was one of the only times she was in daycare for 2 weeks. I'm not even kidding, guys. 2 weeks, never again. So she was 5 years old. And it was part-time, by the way, too. So she was there, and apparently I had given her a Barney doll. For those of you that are old like me, you might remember Barney. So anyway, she had a little Barney stuffed animal. And I said, she can have this for her naps, right? They're like, yeah, she can have it. Well, they apparently had taken it away from her, put it on top of a shelf, and she went over there like a kid, and she tried to climb the shelf to get it, and she fell, and her leg hurt, whatever. And they never told me about this, by the way. I found out about this later. So fast forward a few days, I'm looking at my daughter, and she wouldn't push forward with her foot on her bike. She would, kind of try to pedal with her heel, but she wouldn't push her toes forward. So I said to my then husband, my ex-husband, I said, hey, that looks weird to me. Like, why is she doing that? And it wasn't swollen or red or anything. And he's like, oh, she's fine. So I kind of squeezed a little bit, and she kind of winced, like it hurt a little bit. And I was like, oh, I'm going to take her to the pediatrician. This doesn't look right. Oh my God, you're neurotic. You're going to turn her into a hypochondriac like you, or why are you doing that, and there's nothing wrong with her, you're crazy. Long story short, I go to the pediatrician, and he takes her for an x-ray, comes back, and he says, it's a good thing you brought her in. She has 2 fractures. And I laughed. I go, yeah, right, I know, right? And he goes, no, I'm serious. She has, her tibia and her foot plate are fractured. I was like, what? So I took her across the street. This is in South Florida. I took her across the street to the Joe DiMaggio Children's Hospital. Long story short, orthopedic, this, that, she has a cast. So I called the school, the daycare, because I knew nothing had happened at home. So I called the daycare, and I'm like, what happened, right? And they're like, oh yeah, she fell. We didn't think anything of it. Anyway, so long story short, that's just a little example of me being called, neurotic, psycho, overly protective, when it paid off, right? In fact, I would go so far as to say 90% of the time when I'm like, oh my God, you have to check this, it usually turns into something. I can't remember a time, or actually I think maybe one time, I think I was throwing up a lot, and I was freaking out. I got upset, nervous. I went to the emergency room, and it turned out like to be a bug, and you're fine and go home, which, I'm like, that happens, right? That kind of stuff happens. So I was like, I get really offended by people who act like if you're hyper conscious of what's going on, that, right away you're a hypochondriac, or you're this, or you're that. I find that offensive, right? So for me, what is that line? Like, I know people who ignore everything. In fact, my ex-husband got bit by a dog, decided to let that go, and he ended up with, a big golf ball in his groin and an infection, and got really sick from it. And I remember telling him, get that checked. You need to get that checked. You better go get that checked. What are you waiting for? And it's just, it's not funny, but I mean, I wasn't neurotic then. I was like, you need to get that checked. So do any of you really go through that? People telling you, oh, you're a hypochondriac, you're neurotic, you're this, you're that, calm down, because I really get offended by that. Like, I'm not even kidding. But I'm sure there are people now. Of course, I've known people that are the other way, right? Crazy. Every little scratch, this, that, they're at the hospital, whatever. I get that. I'm sure it can go both ways. But have you ever had that where it's kind of like that fine line, right? You know, my husband's like that. My husband's leg could be hanging off and he's not going to the hospital. He don't care. Just, you know, and he's gotten not, I'm not gonna say angry, but kind of short-tempered with me, or like an attitude. Like if I want to go to the emergency room, it's like right away, it's the money, it's this, it's that. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, like, I don't know. I just kind of feel like I told you in another video, my mother used to say, I'd rather you go and them say, what the heck are you doing here, than not go and them say, gee, you should have came in before and we could have fixed it. So anyway, so that's kind of like my rant. I'm a firm believer in get it checked. I really am. I know that that's probably not a popular opinion, but I'm a get it checked person. Look, no harm, no foul, you know. I'd rather check it and it's nothing than don't check it and it's something serious. Because I've seen that a lot in my life as well, right? Especially at this stage in my life, you know. I'm over 60. I'm in the last chapter of my life, you know. I feel like we have to be hyper conscious or hyper vigilant of our health, right? We take vitamins, we walk, we drink more water, you know, just this morning I was watching stuff about how to unclog your arteries, you know, olive oil and this and that and ginger and, you know, all these things. We want to be hyper proactive, but isn't proactive getting things checked, right? Isn't being proactive part of that being like, hey, this feels wrong or this doesn't look right, let's get that seen to? I think that's part of it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like crazy grandma. You know, especially if it comes to my babies, like forget it. If it's my grandkids or my kids or someone, I'm like, nope, get in the car, we're getting that checked. Anyway, so that's my thoughts. I was just wondering if any of you guys go through that, like, oh, you're a hypochondriac, you're neurotic, you know, just because you're, you know, hyperconscious or hyper vigilant of your health, like just really being on top of it, right? You know, so anyway, those are my thoughts. I was just curious what you guys thought, and if you get any of that, because I'm so tired of getting that. I've been getting it a lot, but anyway, have a good day. I'll see you in the next one.